Welcome to Time of Death. This video is for informational purposes and in no way meant to glorify or condone violence. In today's video, we'll be discussing the murder of Luis Fernando Fernandez Lima. Lima was shot and killed on Tuesday, September 6, 2016, in the 600 block of South Lafayette Park Place in Westlake, according to LA County coroner records. Jose Garcia was subsequently arrested and charged with the murder. The following is the evidence at trial. On September 6, 2016, at about 5 p.m., a witness was at Lafayette Park. He saw two people arguing, and in a matter of minutes, 2 or 3 gunshots rang out. The shooter ran across the street. The witness followed the shooter and told him to stop and not to be a coward. The shooter pulled something out of his pants pocket and gestured towards the witness in a way that he found threatening. Victim Lima died from a gunshot to the chest. He also had 2 gunshot wounds to the head, but they were superficial and not immediately lethal. The community center had cameras outside that captured the altercation between the victim and the shooter. The investigating officer showed the video surveillance to gang officers who specialize in the Mara Salvatrucha gang, which operated in the area. Detective Jesus Plasencia identified defendant as the shooter from the video. The video showed the victim putting his arms out towards defendant in a manner that the investigating officer described as a challenge. The victim also made gestures with his hands that the investigating officer thought were gang-related. However, the victim did not have a weapon. Defendant walked away, but the victim followed him. Defendant then shot the victim and fled. Defendant wore a Rams hat and had a mustache and goatee. 3 days after the victim was killed, law enforcement detained defendant and drove him to Lafayette Park and then along the path the shooter took after fleeing the scene, pointing out the cameras along the route. The investigating officer then interviewed defendant, who no longer had a goatee. Defendant admitted that he and the victim had an altercation and defendant shot him. Defendant said the victim approached him, said he was from MS, and threw gang signs. Defendant replied that he was also from MS, but the victim said defendant was bullshitting and called defendant a rat and said they were gonna get him. Defendant told the victim to stop fucking with me and that he hadn't done anything. When the victim came at him, defendant felt scared and shot the victim twice. Defendant fled and threw the gun in a trash can. Defendant admitted he had been an MS gang member for the past 8 years, having joined when he was about 28 years old. Defendant has the following tattoos: Coronado on his chest, Mexican on his neck, little cycles and MS on his abdomen, MS on his left shin, a star and a face on his right arm, and a mural with a face on his back. Defendant also said that other MS gang members treated him bad and put him down because he was Mexican and they were Central American. Defendant talked about several violent incidents involving MS gang members. He was shot at in front of his house, a car hit him while he was walking, and a guy called Bestia hit him and said he would shoot him. Defendant said that the Coronado clique of MS wanted to kill him because he was taking care of the park vendors. After defendant was arrested and was en route for a medical examination, the transporting officer asked defendant why he looked sad. Defendant replied that he was sad because he had to do what he had to do. Defendant said that young guys were robbing older vendors at the park. He admitted he was a member of the Coronado clique and had worked his way up in the park where he was in charge of protecting the vendors. Alex Alonso testified as a gang expert for the defense. He researches gangs including MS. Using a map he created, Alonso listed the predominantly Hispanic gangs in the Pico Union area where the victim was killed. In that area, Alonso estimated there were between 1 and 200 MS members, but that might be a stretch. MS makes money by taxing businesses. If someone interferes with the taxation and collection of money, that could result in discipline. Alonso also said it was not uncommon for gang members to be killed by fellow gang members. Based on defendant's statement that gang members wanted to kill him, there might have been a green light on him. An information charged defendant with murder and possession of a firearm by a felon. At her first trial in 2022, a jury convicted defendant of possession of a firearm by a felon, but deadlocked on the murder count. The matter then proceeded to a second trial on the murder count. The second jury found defendant not guilty of first-degree murder, but guilty of second-degree murder with a finding that he personally used a handgun. On June 22, 2023, the court sentenced defendant on count 1 to 15 years to life in prison, doubled under the 3 strikes law to 30 years to life based on the prior strike that the court found true, plus 4 years for the gun enhancement. On count 2, the court sentenced defendant to the upper term of 3 years, doubled to 6 years. Luis Fernando Fernandez Lima was 22 years old at the time of death.